Okay, so I've been thinking a lot about Age of Imprisonment this past week, especially about the debate around whether it's actually canon. And yes, Nintendo has come out with a statement saying it's a canonical tale. But if you're like me, you probably still had a tiny voice in your head going, okay, but will there really be zero time travel shenanigans? Well, after digging more into the role of time travel in both games, I've come to the conclusion that unlike Age of Calamity, which had to break the rules, Age of Imprisonment actually has to be canon, and that everything we need to understand why can be found in Tears of the Kingdom. Let's break it down. First, let's talk about why Age of Calamity gets people so riled up about this topic. Age of Calamity's time travel mechanic occurs through a little robot named Terrako. Terrako is a tiny guardian who uses Sheikah tech to open time portals between the start of the Great Calamity and the time of Breath of the Wild 100 years later. It causes a time paradox, first by sending itself back in time, then pulling the champions from Breath of the Wild into the past. Terrako also has the ability to send the champions back into the future, and this is notable for reasons I'll get back to. Sidon, Yunobo, Tiba, and Riju coming into the past stop the Blight Ganons from killing the Calamity champions, which obviously changes the future. Then, unlike the memories we saw in Breath of the Wild, they win. They go on to beat Calamity Ganon, which, yay, is a happy ending, but of course negates the entire plot of Breath of the Wild. This is why the game is not considered canon, or, if we're being generous, why it's considered to be on an alternate timeline. But here's where it gets interesting for Age of Imprisonment. Tears of the Kingdom introduces a completely different style of time travel, and it actually establishes rules that will explain why imprisonment has to be canon. Even though there's a bit of a time skip in Breath of the Wild, the story did not have a time travel component. Link didn't travel through time. He just took a really long nap. That's why introducing time travel in Age of Calamity was so disruptive. It changed the events of the past, causing a time paradox that negated the events of the future. Tears of the Kingdom, on the other hand, did have a time travel component that factored heavily into the plot. At the beginning of the game, right after waking up dehydrated Ganon, Zelda activates the power of recall and sends herself tens of thousands of years into the past of the Zonai era. In doing so, Zelda is actually the Terrako of her game, altering events of the past that will change the future. Age of Imprisonment isn't going to cause a time paradox, because one already exists. However, you might think to yourself, well, Zelda's recall ability, like Terrako's portal powers, is what will set up the Age of Calamity time travel shenanigans. She already pulled the Master Sword into the past, so why not just summon the modern warriors, like Terrako did, into the ancient past and stop Ganon before he gets started? There is one huge difference here though. Unlike Terrako, Zelda does not have the ability to go forward in time. As we learn in Tears of the Kingdom, the recall ability is a one-way ticket. The only way that Zelda was able to return to the modern era was by turning herself into a dragon and flying around for thousands of years. And the important distinction to make here is that this is not time travel. It's just, again, basically taking a very, very long nap. So if Zelda can't get herself into the future, it seems like a stretch that even if she could summon Link and the Sages, she would doom them to being trapped in the past with her, given that her whole goal in the past is to get back to the future. Although, tinfoil hat time, I will say two crazy theories that just popped into my head as I was writing that. First, okay, say she did trap the Sages in the past, and their only way to return to the future was to also eat the secret stones. That would make for some absolutely wild origin stories for Naydra, Farosh, and Dinral. This theory doesn't bear weight for a lot of reasons, including that it narratively excludes the Rito, but the idea of Sidon, Riju, and Yunobo being the dragons all along is the kind of conspiracy theory that y'all know I love. And the other theory that just popped into my head was because the sages of the past have not been named and have been hidden behind masks this whole time, what if, when they finally take off their masks, it was revealed, Scooby-Doo style, that it was actually just Sidon, Riju, Yunobo, and Tulin all along? But okay, all jokes aside and taking the tinfoil hat back off for a second, bringing the modern sages to the past actually would foil Zelda's entire plot after Rauru seals Ganondorf. In the past, she meets with each sage, warning them that Ganon's seal will eventually break and that in the future, Link will need the assistance of their descendant and the use of their secret stone to finally defeat him. Obviously, if they defeat Ganondorf way back then, that entire arc becomes moot. And besides, their descendant would then become unreachable in the future. The ending of the Imprisoning War as we know it is bittersweet, but not as utterly devastating as the Great Calamity. In the past of Breath of the Wild, Hyrule is decimated. The sages die. Link goes into a coma, and Zelda freezes herself for 100 years to seal Ganon. That's a huge bummer, and would be a pretty depressing ending to Age of Calamity if left untouched. At the end of the Imprisoning War, however, Team Zelda is in much better shape. Obviously, sad stuff happens. Sonia is murdered, Rauru sacrifices himself to seal Ganondorf, and Zelda ultimately chooses to go through draconification, with the full knowledge that she may be sacrificing herself to heal the Master Sword. But in the grand scheme of things, it's sort of a stalemate with Ganondorf. None of the sages die, they have a plan for the future, and Ganondorf has been placed under a seal that lasts tens of thousands of years. While calling it hopeful is a stretch, it's certainly a more optimistic ending than the heartbreak we would have experienced in Age of Calamity watching all our friends die. And that's kind of the beauty of this whole debate. Age of Calamity had to rewrite the rules of the universe and incorporate time travel to give players a satisfying ending. Age of Imprisonment? It doesn't need to. And on top of that, Age of Calamity could use the time travel mechanic because there weren't existing rules for it in Breath of the Wild. Age of Imprisonment does not have that freedom. So unless they decide to throw all the rules about time travel out the window, I don't think that's happening. But what about the Amiibo, you may be asking? It is true that they've announced new Amiibo for Tulin, Yunobo, Sidon, and Riju, but I'll point out that the Amiibo are being released alongside the ToTK upgrade in June, not alongside Age of Imprisonment, and are being branded as Tears of the Kingdom Amiibo. We do know that a Minoru Amiibo will be following later this year, and while I suspect that that will also be Tears of the Kingdom branded, it could be put out to support Age of Imprisonment. I'm also shocked that we haven't heard anything about a Rauru Amiibo, but that's a gripe for another day. I do think there's a good chance that the Amiibo will be used to unlock these characters as fighters, but I don't believe they will be part of the story at all. In conclusion, not only has Nintendo called this game a canonical tale, but they've pretty much boxed themselves into making sure it is. While Age of Calamity both required time travel from an emotional standpoint, and had the flexibility from Breath of the Wild to allow it, the story of Tears of the Kingdom should absolutely prevent that. But let me know what you think. Am I right that Age of Imprisonment has to follow Zelda's story accurately? Or will my chaotic dragon theory come to fruition? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if you haven't already, please feel free to like and subscribe. And, as always, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.